crafty friends. Welcome to Flosstube. My name is Jessi, and my pronouns are they, them, and she, her. And this is Misslaid Pages, where I share my crafty stuff. It's also where I record an hour-long video and then find out when I go to edit it that there is no sound. So this is the second recording of this particular Flosstube, which I didn't really have time for in the first place. So yay. Yay. Anyway, I still wanted to get this filmed and up for y'all. It's been a minute since I was here to chat with y'all. Life has been happening all over me, so it's definitely not been as bad or as challenging as some folks are dealing with. But it has been a rough couple of months. Work, day job has been keeping me very, very busy, mentally taxed. And, things have just been very, very busy using all of my mental faculties and resources so that at the end of the day, all I have is mush. I'm just tired and my brain is soup, and there's been no room for creativity or a whole lot of fun, honestly. So it reminds me of back in 2016 and 2017 where I would sit on the couch after work and just wish that I could do things. And I'm not loving that flashback. It's not my favorite flashback. It's not fun. But it is what it is. I'm hoping that work is evening out a little bit. We did just go through our end of fiscal year. Things tend to be a little bit more haywire and chaotic as we come up to the end of the fiscal year. The end of the quarter is also a thing for me, but the end of the fiscal year is the biggest for like everybody. So there was a lot of that. But we're through the end of the fiscal year. I'm through the reporting that I had to do for that. Hopefully things will get to a steadier pace so that I am working and working, not hard, but working steadily, but still have space for me and my time and the things that I want to do. Because as usually happens when the resources are limited, I have to start deciding which things I can let go. And unfortunately, the day job, which is the thing I would love to let go of the most, is necessary for survival. That's what helps pay the bills. And there are a lot of bills. So that is unfortunately the first priority. And then and then the business, and then the Flosstube and the Twitch and all the things. And I've been doing just barely keeping the business open the last few months, which I hate, but I there's not much else I can do right now. Hopefully things will rebalance, or I'll figure out a way to make them rebalance one way or the other. So yeah. In addition to that, there's been some mental health stuff, some physical health stuff. Nothing like major, scary or anything, just like consistent and persistent. And, I'm doing what I need to do to take care of those things, seeing who I need to see, taking the meds that I need to take, so on and so forth. In the case of the physical stuff, I have some potential gastro stuff going on. I'm not going to get into huge details, but like, the frustration there is just the amount of time it is taking to do the things that I need to do for them to decide what is going on. So without going into too much detail, in February, when I saw my regular doctor, because I see her quarterly for diabetes maintenance and so on and so forth, when I saw her in February, my blood work showed anemia, iron deficient anemia. So she was concerned that there might be an unknown bleed somewhere. So I've done various tests. Well, the first thing was to set an appointment with a gastroenterologist. So in February, the earliest appointment I could get was June. Yeah. So June 10th, I finally met with a gastroenterologist, did several tests, including an abdominal ultrasound. Nothing came back as being the source of any bleeding. So now I get to have an endoscopy and a colonoscopy. And don't you know, when they called me 2 weeks ago, something like that, to schedule this appointment, this thing, that's supposed to potentially find bleeding that might be happening, that appointment isn't until September 19th. Happy anniversary to me. So yeah. So for my anniversary this year, I get to do colon prep. Yay! I'm very excited. That's probably TMI. However, it's stressful. The whole like medical stuff is stressful, and this is not even like, so far as I can tell, it's not even anything that is that serious. So, folks that are having to deal with like major chronic issues, I have so much sympathy for you. And part of it is like I've been through a lot of that with family members and stuff. I've been through a lot of chronic stuff with my mom, my stepdad, my dad, my brother. Like I get it. Um, the only difference is now that, as far as I know, it's not a major deal, but also it's me going to the appointments instead of going to the appointments with them. So anyway, it's a lot. It's a lot. Um, and then, add on top of that just grief, and the fact that grief doesn't really go away. It just sometimes it kind of hides in the corner until you're not expecting it. Sometimes it's like this blanket that you put over your lap when you're hanging out and just doing stuff. But yeah, it doesn't really go away so much as just hang around forever in different forms. So anyway, there's lots going on. But that is not to say that I have not been doing anything with the business. It is not to say that I have not been making plans. There are plans afoot. And as you may have already noticed, Bird Box 2025 is up on sale now. I'll talk more about that later in the video. But yeah, yeah. So things are happening. I'm still, as best I can, I'm making things happen. I'm just frustrated that I don't have the time and the capacity. But I mean, since when have I not been frustrated that I didn't have the time and capacity that I wanted to have, right? So, anyway, in the break that I have had from YouTube, I've also not done a ton of crafting, but I've done a little bit of crafting. So, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, how about we get back to, I think, what I used to call, what am I listening to? Because I have been listening to books. For those of you who are new here, because I have ADHD, as I've gotten older, I find it really difficult to sit down and read a book, especially because there's generally 500 other things I want or need to be doing. So rather than sitting and reading a book with my eyes, I tend to listen to a book with my ears. I read a book with my ears through audiobooks now, which means that I can do other things while I am also indulging in reading. So it's really nice for me. And I used to talk about whatever I was listening to, whatever books I was listening to. So I haven't really done that at all this year. So we'll just back it up to the beginning of the year. Honestly, there's not that many books to go through because at the end of last year, I decided I was going to do a re-listen to the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. So that is a total of 4 books now. The 5th book comes out this December. That's part of the reason for the re-listen. But each of those books is, when you're listening to them on one time speed, is at least 40 hours. Each one is at least 40 hours. They get longer. I listen to books on 1.5 speed now, so it takes me less time than that to get through them, but that's still a lot of audio. A lot of audio. So I only finally finished the 4th book. I want to say end of May, beginning of June. I could look it up on Goodreads, but I'm not going to right now. But it's not been very long since I finished the 4th book in the Stormlight Archives, which was Rhythm of War. So I really love that series. I haven't read any other Brandon Sanderson stuff, but I probably will at some point in the future. That particular series is just, it's just so good for so many reasons. The characters are really interesting. They're dealing with a lot of stuff that could be like that I relate to in a real world context, even though it is a context, even though it is a fantasy series. I like the magic that exists. I like the cultural structures that exist. It's interesting the way that they kind of interplay with each other. There's a lot of interesting things going on, and it's a book that isn't heavily into the romantic side of stuff, and certainly not into the spicy side of stuff, which I don't have a problem with either of those things, but when I'm reading a book, I want a story. I don't want it to be just about the main characters hooking up. Like that's me personally. But yeah, so I really enjoy those books. And once I finished those, I got into I re-listened to the Hunger Games trilogy because I promised Jazz, the knitting nurse, that I would listen to them. They listened to the books again or read them at the beginning of the year and really wanted to talk about them again. And I couldn't remember enough detail to be able to converse intelligently because it had been like 2012 since I had read the books originally. And honestly, as I was reading or listening to the third one, I really had a strong suspicion that I had never actually finished the third book. Like maybe I just read half of it and then told book club that I had read it all, had done that kind of thing. But then when I finished the book and went to Market Finish on Goodreads, I saw that I had actually written a review for it back in 2012. So apparently I did finish it, and my brain just completely dumped all that information out of just gone because I had no recollection of the ending, of any twists happening. In fact, my brain had decided that the whole thing was very um, predictable and that the author had been lazy in writing the ending. And I'm just like rereading it. I'm like, what? So I don't know. I don't know. Past Jessi had intelligent things to say about it. Middle time Jessi, all of that space, like my brain so simplified it that it was just like, it was predictable. It was not a terribly interesting ending, and I'm just like, what? So I don't know. I don't know why I made up that story in my head, but um listening to The Hunger Games again, all three books. And this particular edition was especially good because Tatiana Maslany was the narrator for this edition, and she does a fantastic job. She does obviously various different voices for different characters. She does a really good job at that. But she also really helps you feel Katniss because it's a first person book. So having somebody read it as if they are the character is kind of important for really getting immersed in the story, and she did a fantastic job. It was really well done. um so the books were really enjoyable, really well written, and evidently I believed that they were well written back in when I read them as well. In the interim I have forgotten details, so like my brain doesn't remember things, but based on my reviews, I thought they were well written in the beginning, and I still think that they're well written, especially considering they're considered young adult novels. But I don't think that they're limited to that age group. I feel like they hold up really well, and really listening to them in the context of the world we live in now compared to the world we lived in 2012, it just really makes so much of it so much more poignant and makes it so much more real. Um, a lot of points hit home a lot harder listening to it in present times compared to previous times. So I'm glad that I re listened to it, especially the third book, because it really is very relevant. This whole idea of, who is your real enemy? How do you know the truth? Um, who can you trust? What can you trust? Can you trust the media? Can you not trust the media? Can you trust politicians? Can you not trust politicians? Like, it's very interesting. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm glad I listened to them again. And now that I've finished those, I have moved on to a series by Stephen Brust. So the first book is called Jereg or Jereg, is the way the narrator pronounces it. I have some issues with the way he pronounces some of the words and names. There's lots of interesting words. So this is another one of those where it's a whole new world created by the author, which sometimes is really kind of annoying. But this world is really interesting. So the world is set up so that Dragarans are the primary race in the world, and humans, people like us, are called Easterners, and they are second class citizens. So humans are not well thought of. They don't get on well in the larger world. They mostly keep to each other, and that sort of thing. And in this particular world, there's this character called Vlad Taltosh. He is an Easterner. He's a human trying to make it in the world of the Dragarans, and the world is sort of set up. The Dragarans are set up very very much on this sort of system of houses, sort of like Game of Thrones, but not quite. Um, Theirs is a system of houses, but it's also cyclical. So the ruling house is determined by the cycle, sort of like the Chinese zodiac. So not each year, but like the cycle will shift to a different house at various points. And whichever house the cycle is in, that is the ruling house for that time period. And that house puts up an emperor or empress who then wields the orb. And the orb is sort of the source of all magical power for Jagarans. They can all tap into it and use it to cast spells, teleport, and do various things. So there's all of this setting it up, and Vlad is just this little human dude just trying to make it in the world, and he ends up having to essentially learn how to be an assassin. To make his way, and wackiness ensues. And it actually is wackiness at times because Vlad is a very sarcastic, smart mouthed, really kind of funny guy. He's got this fantastic sense of humor. He's just really a smartass, and I love it so much. And this series started out in like 1983, a few years after I was born. The first book came out, and it was one of my brother's favorite series of all time. He loved it so so much, and he introduced me to it many many years ago. So I at least got through book 6 or 7, but there's 15 or 16 books now. The most recent one was just released earlier this year, so I felt like it was time to finally catch up on the series, like listen to them all. Unfortunately, the last 2 books are not in audio yet. The most recent 2 books are not in audio, so I can only get so far. But maybe by the time I get all the way through, the last 2 books will be in audio, maybe. But yeah, it's a really interesting series. I love it so much. The characters are fantastic. The snark is amazing. And while it can be hard to get into this particular narrator, his name is Bernard Sotero Clark. His speech is a little too proper for Vlad, I think. Like his enunciation is just too crisp, and it's too proper, and it's too um, formal and stuff like that. But listening to it on 1.5 times speed, it's a little bit better than it was back in the day when I listened to it on audio for the first time. So I'm getting through it a little bit better. I think when I got to the second book, the last time I listened to it on audio, which I believe I was still listening to things on 1 time speed, um, the last time I listened to it, it was just really, it was hard to get through. The second book was really hard to get through. So hopefully that won't be the problem this time around. But the books are, especially compared to the Stormlight Archives, the books are relatively short. So I think the full run time on 1 time speed is 8 hours on average for these books. So the 1.5 time speed is more like 5 hours. So yeah. Um, it's essentially like a week's worth of listening to me if I only listen back and forth in the car. So yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm reading now. I also still have a ton of stuff on my to be read list. Um, Recommendations from Michelle over at Bendy Stitchy, as well as other books that have just been on my list for ages. So we'll see. My goal is to read at least 30 books this year, and I'm only at like 7 or 8, so I'm quite a bit behind. Quite a bit behind, but I'm hopefully going to catch up with these with the Vlad Taltosh novels. So we'll see. So um, that's what I've been listening to. I haven't been watching anything terribly interesting except House of the Dragon. Or actually, no, I've been watching lots of interesting things. I'm not binging anything terribly interesting right now, but I have actually been watching shows as they come out, like we used to do in the old days. Because some of these streamers insist on releasing things on a week by week basis instead of just giving us the whole drop all at one time. So yeah, I've been watching The Boys, which just had its finale. The Acolyte from Disney Plus, which isn't my normal fare. I'm watching it mostly because Adam wanted to watch it, and it's a relatively accessible Star Wars based show. Like I don't really know the larger context, but it's been fine. I like the actors. And The Boys is raunchy and gross, but also fantastic in so many different ways. And this season, they had Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So last season, we had Jensen Ackles from Supernatural. This season, we had Jeffrey Dean Morgan from Supernatural. There are rumors that in its final season, we might also get to see Jared Padalecki. So I would love a Supernatural reunion. That would be so awesome. I would love to see what kind of character they would have Jared Padalecki play, because he always plays, like, he's always played the Boy Scout, right? Like the good boy, the good guy. Um, and, uh, and I just really want to see them do something super interesting with his, like, put him in a super interesting role that is very outside of his usual thing. But we'll see. We'll see if that's real. I don't know if it is. But I would love that. That would be super awesome. Um, and then what else? What else have I been watching? Oh, House of the Dragon, which is interesting, but doesn't have nearly as many dragons. I mean, it has more dragons this season than it did the first season, but it reminds me of what was the book I read? Flameborn or something like that, which was meant to be a dragon romantasy. And it was billed as being a cross between Game of Thrones and Fourth Wing. And I wouldn't really say it was like either. It was like Fourth Wing and Game of Thrones in that there were dragons and political things happening in the story, um, but it was not good. It wasn't terribly written, but it was not an interesting story. And the dragons had literally no personality. They had no agency. They were not characters in and of themselves. They were just set dressing. And that makes me sad when dragons are just the set dressing. And for House of Dragons, that's kind of what they are. They have individual names, and we get to see them, and they look different, and they theoretically have different personalities. But, like, apparently there's all this lore surrounding how a person becomes a dragon rider. And the show is not telling us what that lore is or really showing it to us. Like, we got a little hint of it this week, but even that was not much. And that's just really disappointing. If there's gonna be dragons, like, can we not learn who these dragons are? Can they not be characters in and of themselves? Anyway, that's a soapbox. Let me get off that soapbox. It's one thing, like, I am not, like, fully totally in love with Fourth Wing. There were issues. But I will say that one thing that I did enjoy about Fourth Wing, and I haven't read Iron Flame yet, one thing that I did enjoy about Fourth Wing was that the dragons had personalities, and we got to, like, they talked and were part of the story. And I appreciate that. Like, I would like for the dragons to be characters and not just vehicles that the characters ride around on, or like props in the background. I would like the dragons to actually be characters, please. Please and thank you. So, to all of you dragon fantasy writers out there. Anyway, so shall we talk about crafts? I haven't talked about crafts yet. Would you like to? Um, so I haven't, as I said, I haven't done really any crafting since June. In fact, this particular piece I worked on June 9th, and that was the last bit of crafting I did until last week. So you'll remember this from the last video. This is Grimm's Fairy Tale from Cloud's Factory, and it was a stitch along from 2020. No, it's not finished. And it's much farther away from being finished than I originally thought. I thought I had like 6,000 stitches or something. I think that there's still like 15,000 stitches. Like, there's a lot of stitches left in this. Um, I I had no clue. Because it turned out that I was more like because I still, so this is like the halfway point right here. So there's still a half over there. And then there was this whole quarter. So I had done a little bit more than a quarter of the stitching. Yeah. So, as you can see, I've actually got a fair bit of progress on here. Let me get it closer to the camera for you. So, hands on the wrong side. Okay. So I filled in much of this area over here. I don't remember what story that is or what character that is. But I filled in much of that with the little motifs there. And then I came down here and started working on this greenery. And that, I believe, indicates where the bottom corner is. I think, if I remember correctly, this piece here, that's where the bottom corner is. So I finally reached the bottom of this section. And I will say that the thread sorter that I'm trying to get everybody in frame. Okay, the threads. Let me put it this way. The thread sorter that I had shown y'all in the last video actually did really help with the speed of working on this. So instead of having to unwind the DMC and put it on a needle and then switch that out and put it away, get a new thread on the needle, having an individual needle for each color, excuse me, made it super fast. So it'd be like, okay, what color am I stitching next? Grab and then start stitching. So the majority of this, because I believe, yeah, so all of the new stitching since the last video I did in one sitting. And that's because of the thread sorter making it so much faster. So I would sit there and I go, well, I'm just going to finish this color and then I'll get up and do something else. Or I'll just finish this color and get up. I'm just going to do these stitches. I'm going to, I just kept doing that over and over again until it was like 6 p.m. and I had 1,000 stitches and I was like, wow. So, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I want to enjoy stitching on this, but I don't enjoy stitching on it. I don't know why. It went really quickly, but I found that I wasn't like, that I didn't love having done. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But regardless, it is time to put this one back with the whips because I think I've worked on this enough for now, and I'm ready to move on to something else that's more interesting and more inspiring to me because this is just not, it's just not doing it for me. It looks really cool. I love the way it looks, but I have not enjoyed working on it. I don't know. I want to finish it. I will finish it someday. And I kind of want to do the Hans Christian Andersen, the new one that has come out, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's because it's on Ada. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is with this project. I do want to finish it, but I don't know. It's time for something different for right now. So, I don't know what piece is going to get me inspired to get me really, really back into stitching because I have not been consistently interested in stitching since probably 2022. Like last year I did almost no stitching. I just was not into it for whatever reason last year. And then this year I thought I had gotten over that, but it seems that that's not the case. So, I went just like bonkers on, the, Nemarie tapestry, like to the point where it's more than half finished, but since I stopped working on it, I've just not been into it. I don't know if I just need to pull that back out and try to finish it. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the stitching I've done since we chatted last. And I haven't done any knitting. I had not done any knitting until last week, which is surprising because normally knitting is my go-to when I'm not feeling mentally well. But like, like, to be real with y'all, I had no interest in any of my crafts. I had no interest in anything. Like, it's not been fun. It has not been fun. Essentially the only thing I can get my brain or could get my brain to be interested in was those like really soothing like what kind, I forget, words are not working for me today. So games like Power Wash Simulator and and what was the other one? Oh, House Flipper. Because like you're given instructions and you just go do the thing and then you get a new job and you go do the thing. Like that was the only thing that was working for my brain. Like nothing else was interesting for a very long time. The last couple of weeks, I felt the beginnings of those stirrings, trying to, like something in the back of my brain going, you really kind of do want to do something creative. You kind of do want to work with something. And fortunately, Jazz reminded me that the new Casapinka knit along was starting last Friday. So miraculously, I went into my stash, found exactly the right number of skeins in the same fiber content, not from the same dyer, but in the same fiber content that all went together. Like, oh my gosh, because I don't buy things that coordinate because that would be smart. And I buy things that are pretty. I buy the colors that make me go, ooh, and they don't always work together, as it turns out. So anyway, it turned out that I had a 3 skein set from Treehouse Knits from a grab bag sale that she did last year, where you could buy coordinating sets like in 3s and 4s and stuff like that. So I had a 3 skein set from her that I liked. I do have a 4 skein set from her as well, but it was like pale browns, like a soft brown fade. And I was like, no, we're not doing a soft brown fade for this. No. But the 3 colors happened to work with a singleton skein that I had left over from, I think a set that I bought from Asylum Fibers. Like, I think I used 3 or 4 of the colors for something else, and I just had this leftover skein, and it turned out that it worked really nicely with the 3 skeins from Treehouse Knits, and so this is what we have so far. So I am like maybe halfway through Clue 1, and Clue 2 dropped this past Friday. So actually, it started a week ago Friday, the 12th. It started on the 12th. And there are 2 clues out. I'm only halfway through the first clue. And you can see 3 of the 4 colors in this. And there's like one of my hairs is knitted into that. So this dark blue and this variegated, those are from the Treehouse Knit set. And then this lighter blue is the Asylum Fibers. And they look really, really nice together. So the 4th color is like a silver gray. And it's going to be really nice. And you'll see it once I think I've got 6 rows left in this stripy section. And then I start the color D row, or the color D section. So that's what we have so far. I had aspirations that I might actually keep up with this. And I say aspirations because I knew it wasn't terribly realistic, but I was like, maybe I can do this. But the drops are pretty bulky. So the very first drop, Clue 1, was already over 100 rows. Because there's like 5 or 6 sections, and each section has 12 or 20 rows or something like that. It's a lot of rows. So, so that's how far I've gotten. I haven't even looked at Clue 2 yet. But I think I'm about halfway through, maybe 2/3, or maybe a little bit more than halfway through Clue 1. And this year, she's done something a little different, which I really, really love. So she's doing, it's going to be a rectangular shawl. Surprise, surprise. Casapinka do an MCal for a rectangular shawl? You don't say. Anybody who's been I think the one year she did something different was the one year I didn't do it in time. But I have bought a set to do it at some point. But yeah, for the most part, she does these rectangular shawls. But this year, she's doing this I-cord edging, or this edging that turns into an I-cord. And I love the way it looks so much. So it really is kind of keeping the knitting nice and flat and straight on the edge there. But also, it just looks very finished. Compared to the garter stitch edging that she's done in previous patterns. So I am loving this. I might have to incorporate this into like everything from now on, because I really love the way it works. It looks like you've hemmed the edge. So it's just very, very nice. And you can see on the back there. So essentially all you're doing with this is you're knitting for when you start the row, and then when you come back on the wrong side, you slip those 4 stitches with the yarn in back, or no, yarn in front, because you're on the wrong side. And so that when you come back to knit them again, it pulls them in on each other, and then you have this really nice I-cord edge. I love it. I love it so much. So it's working out really well. And I'm thinking, because my crisscrossy section there is really loose and it's hard to see that nice detail. So I'm hoping that once I block this after it's finished, I'm hoping that that will I'll be able to stretch that out so it's more well defined, and you can see those nice crissy crosses there. So anyway, there's the hair again. Come out of there. So yeah, so I started this a week ago Friday, and that's it's pretty good progress for me, I think. So I got the all the ribbing down there, and then the crisscrossy section, and then this is just stripies, stockinette stripies. So I think that'll go through. I don't know. She probably does 6 clues. She'll probably do 6 clues. So probably halfway through August, or it'll be done at the end of August, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. So that's something I'm working on, and I'll be taking that with me next week. That and Arda both. I'm going on a work trip next week, out of state, not super far out of state, but out of state enough that I'll be staying overnight in a hotel all by myself for 4 days. So that's exciting. Having a hotel room all to myself. That feels like a little mini vacation, even though I'll be in class from like 8:30 to 4:30 every day. It feels like a vacation because I'm going to a different place and staying in a hotel. And I'm anticipating having a fair bit of alone time, free time in the evenings. We'll see. I don't know. I've never been on an out of town trip with coworkers before. So it's going to be interesting because there's 5 or 6 other folks from my office who are also going, and some of them are very much extroverts, and I'm wondering if folks are going to be like, "Let's all do dinner," and I'll just be like, "I've been sitting with y'all all day. I want to go be by myself now." So I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I'm hoping to get some knitting done. So I'm going to take both of these. I'll take Arda just in case I actually get through all the clues that are available at the time. I doubt that's going to happen. But also if I just need a break, because Arda's nice, because it's got the knit one purl one. I thought I heard something. Knit one purl one or the knit one slip one, which is a nice break from endless rows of garter stitch, not garter stitch, stockinette. So anyway, so that'll be next week. This week I am hoping to start, well, not hoping, I'm going to start a new stitchy project that hopefully I will also finish this week. We shall see. The goal is to finish this week. It needs to be finished by next week. I'm not going to tell you what the pattern is. I'm just going to show you my fabric and my flosses, because it's a secret. It's a secret, and I can't tell you. So I'm just going to show you the things and tell you that I'm getting ready to start. So this is actually pink fabric. It looks very me colored, but it is pink, I assure you. So this is a very light pink background with darker pink modeling. This is, I think, a printed fabric. Yeah, it's printed. I got this from, I think it's a Zweigart. Is it Zweigart? It's Lugana in Vintage Rose. I got it from Yarn Tree. So it's Vintage Rose Lugana, 32 count, I believe. Why did I get 32 count? Yeah, it's 32 count. It may not be, I mean, the holes are pretty... Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if I can do 2 threads, because some hand dyed Lugana 32 count is super super tight with 2 threads. So I don't know if this is going to be too tight with 2 threads or not, but we'll see. Anyway, so I've got that fabric, and I have these flosses, which I think are awesome. It's not the called for flosses, but I think it kind of fits the vibe maybe. I'm hoping it kind of fits the vibe. So, but I like them together. I think it'll be good. I'm gonna post this on Patreon as well, so the colors will come off a little bit better, because I don't know that these flosses are coming off quite as real. This is sort of a greeny bronzy kind of color. It's like greeny brown. And then we've got this sort of um, earth tone magenta, kind of. And then this is actually darker than the, or not darker. It's lighter than the called for, but I liked the way it popped with these others. So I thought that would be fun. So, but it's secret. I can't tell you about it until later. But when I finish it, I will definitely let y'all know, and I'll share pictures and stuff. So, but yeah, so I'm hoping to do that. Hoping to start and finish that sometime this week. We'll see. I might be able to get some good work in it on Saturday. Um, Depending on what else I have to get done. I have to get some stuff dyed this weekend. Um, and I have to play around with some dye for some other stuff this weekend. So yeah. Why is this fabric not going back in the bag? Fabric is being a pain in my butt. Okay, there we go. I got it back in the bag. So yeah. So yeah, those are all the plans that I have, because we're not making plans these days. At least not for crafty stuff. I'm just doing crafty stuff as I have time and as I have the inclination to do so. But now it's time to talk about bird boxes. 2025 bird boxes. Okay. So, let me So, bird boxes are on sale. They went on sale the 12th, I believe, of July, and they will continue to be on sale until or through August 1st, or until they sell out, if they sell out. So, if you have not gotten your box, if you're wondering whether you should or shouldn't, you have a couple more weeks to decide. It might not be quite 2 weeks by the time you see this video, but about 2 weeks. So you still have time, but not a lot of time. So make sure you make your decision. So some additional details about this year's box. This year, I had this planned out really well for when I recorded the last video, and now I've suddenly forgotten. Okay, so the biggest differences from this year's box, or this year's box compared to last year's boxes, this year's box only comes in the fully fledged version. So I decided not to do hatchling versions, which are the smaller versions that don't include fabric. And include DMC instead of specialty threads. This year I decided not to do those. So apologies to you folks that usually buy those. I do apologize. I know that the price point is a little bit better, but the volume and call for those is significantly lower than the rest of the boxes. And I just wanted to be able to focus on what folks were most interested in. The other thing I had to change, or that is not available this year, is Ada fabric. And that is because I am outsourcing the fabric this year, or at least the main fabric. There might be other surprises. But the primary fabric for the box is going to be from Lap and Loops, who is a local to me dyer, who I met. I had known about them and of them for several years, but I actually met Lap and Loops at Market this year, and it was a fantastic experience. And they had exactly the color that I was looking for this particular project. And so I am working with them to provide fabric for the box this year, which is very exciting for me. I love dyeing fabric for the boxes, but there's also a lot of other work that goes into the boxes. So having somebody dye the fabric instead of me, and do all of that work instead of me, frees me up to be able to do other things for the box. So I'm very excited about that. It frees me up to be able to do other things outside of the box as well, because the bird boxes are pretty much my big thing. And I plan them all year long. Like, it takes a lot of work. So this enables me to do some other things and focus on some other things, which is really nice. This year's lineup of designers is fantastic. I am so excited. So, like, I don't even know how to tell y'all, because some of these folks some of these folks you recognize from previous boxes, but the new to the box folks are people that I have been hoping to work with for a while now, and I'm so excited. So returning to the box this year, Michelle of Bendy Stitchy. Bendy Stitchy Designs, Dee and Kari of Dee's 20 Stitches and Uncanny Kari. Also, Miriam of Marumi Crafts. She is returning this year, and I'm very, very excited to have all of them come back. The three new to the box designers are Amanda May of Ardith Designs. Very exciting. Holly Freeman of Stitchy Pros, and also, and I'm so, so excited to work with her, Nuri of Shaded Stitchery. So I'm so excited. I think these are going to be fantastic folks to bring this particular theme to life. I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm excited for y'all to see what all comes out of it. So those are the designers for this year. I will be designing a part of the design, but I will be having, I won't be, what am I trying to say? They are the main designers for the box. I will also be designing some other stuff for the box. So there's that. So price points are just a little bit higher this year than last year. There wasn't much I could do about that. I did try to keep it low, but I also like to make sure that y'all are getting good quality stuff in your boxes, and that takes money. So, but those are available for a couple more weeks if you're interested. And remember that once they go off sale, there won't be any more sales. So if you want it, you need to go ahead and buy it now. So that being said, I think that's it for this one. So that all went a lot faster this time. It took me an hour to say all that stuff the first time. Okay. Anyway, I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. It is a wacky, wacky world, and that's to put it mildly. I'd like to call it other things, but we'll just say wacky. Y'all know what I mean. We live in unprecedented times, and I'm tired of hearing that we live in unprecedented times because, anyway, please take care of yourselves, because the first step in anything, in activism, in trying to get the world to be a better place, the first step in all of that is making sure you take care of yourself so that you have the energy and the ability to go and do the things that you need to do. So take care of yourselves. And remember what I always say, stay hydrated, make sure to take all the meds you need to take, and remember that you are enough. And I will see you all again soon. Bye.